Hey, it's Lindsay, y'all. Today, I want to talk to you about something that was kind of a recent event, something in the news, and something that's, I think, kind of big in the trans world. So, if you didn't know, or if you're watching this later, it was just a few days ago that a very well-known actor, Elliot Page, came out as trans, and that's a big deal. He's pretty well known for his roles in, most recently in Umbrella Academy, but he starred in Juno. He had a role in some of the X-Men movies. So he's pretty well known. So I want to talk about that a little bit from a couple of different angles. So the first part of it, what I want to talk about is making sure you are talking about him respectfully. Because I've seen this even with friends of mine. You got to resist the urge to dead name trans people. You just do. Yes, Elliot was very famous under his dead name. And when people ask, oh, who's Elliot Page? Like, maybe you might want to say, oh, he used to be known as, don't do that. You know, excuse me, I have a cough today. So yes, that is the name that he used to go by, but that is not his name anymore. He has told us what his name is. He has told us his pronouns are he, they, and it is important that everybody be respectful of that. So, if you need to reference him in some way to explain who he is for people who don't know that name, say he's he's in Umbrella Academy, he was in Juno, he was in the X-Men films. Use those things as ways to explain it. And I'm not an expert. I can't speak for all trans people. But I think if you can call out in another way, even while it's disrespectful to dead name someone, in my opinion, it's not problematic if you name the characters that they used to play, because look, he obviously, if you know his body of work, he played women in these movies. Juno is, I actually haven't seen Juno, but as I understand it, he starred in that and portrayed a pregnant woman in that movie. So I don't think it's problematic to reference that. Given that body of work and given those roles, those movies and the shows will always exist. One thing that I think is really awesome is that the people who make Umbrella Academy are actually going back to those first two seasons and updating the credits with his name as it is now, which is just, I think, incredibly respectful, and props to them for being just really good allies. And when he made his Twitter post about it, the official Umbrella Academy account commented on it and was really supportive. And as I understand it, the official Netflix account, since it's a Netflix show, a lot of people really came out for him when he came out. And I think that's fantastic. As with anything trans in the news, the haters are going to come out too. The TERFs, the transphobes, it's inevitable. I try not to let it get to me, but it's hard. Don't read the comments. Don't read the comments. Don't read the comments. And then I go read the comments and I get sucked into that black hole. And it affects me. How could it not, These are people hating on my very existence and telling me I'm not valid, or I'm making it up, or I'm just looking for attention. And fuck y'all. You don't know me and you don't understand this experience. And it's not even that you don't understand it because you're cisgender. because there's lots of cisgender people who, while they can't completely understand the nuances of being trans, like they do generally understand it. They get it, and they're respectful of it. So be that. Just a thought. Um, so yeah, that's my first thing that I wanted to say was, let's be respectful of Elliot. This is this is big. He came out originally as a lesbian about 6 years ago, and I remember watching that video at the time, and it just being very powerful. And I didn't even identify as any flavor of queer at that point. I thought I was just a cis straight dude. But I remember that seeing that and that being powerful. And he's a little soft spoken, and I think he's a private guy probably. And I don't think he likes to just like be out and parade in the spotlight. So I felt like that was a big thing for him to to come out 6 years ago in that way. And so likewise, I think, God, it was huge, this week when he came out as trans. It's, I think, yeah, it's just, it's awesome. Like, Elliot, welcome to the family. Anytime somebody comes out as trans, any flavor of LGBTQ plus, I think it should be celebrated because it takes a lot of strength to do that. It's an impossible situation to be put in, to have to come out, to exist as who and what we are. So especially with trans people, when somebody's trans and they come out, I celebrate that, whether I know them or not. And I know people, who have come out since I've known them, and I celebrate every damn time. And I'm so proud of them. Like, I'm not going to do the thing. I'm not going to call them brave, because you know how I feel about that. I've talked about that before. But I I'm incredibly proud of them, and I am thrilled for them because I remember what that feels like. It's it's a huge weight off your shoulders. Obviously this is a hard life and it's a lot to take on to transition, but it's absolutely the best thing for us. Like, that is the treatment for gender dysphoria. Transition. That's the only treatment. And it works. The happiness rates can tell you that. So, anyway, I didn't want to go didn't want to go down that path too much. I promise I don't have COVID. I just have a cough. Um, so the other thing I really wanted to say about Elliot coming out is that this is huge for trans representation. This is visibility, positive visibility, in a way that I don't know if we've seen exactly like this. There are famous trans people out there who are very well known and respected, like Laverne Cox. And then there are people who have, who are well known, who have come out and transitioned, somewhat in the public eye. I'm thinking specifically about the Wachowskis, the makers of the Matrix, both of whom, after making that movie later on, came out as trans and transitioned. And that's still pretty famous and public, but they're also, behind the camera. And so I think that, as if they avoid interviews and things, maybe it's not as visible necessarily. And then, you have, of course, Caitlyn Jenner. We've got to talk about Caitlyn Jenner if we're going to talk about famous people coming out and transitioning in the public eye. And I wish her no ill will. I don't want to hate on her. but she's not a great representative for us. She's a very problematic person, has very problematic things in her life, and problematic views that, while I'm glad that to see a trans person, take that step, she's not exactly who I want at the front of the parade, like carrying the banner, carrying that trans flag. But then we have Elliot. Elliot is a very well respected actor. He has a solid body of work. And, I think I've heard some people say, well, there goes his career, or whatever. And I got to tell you, I don't see it happening, especially now in a time where I think we're finally starting to get some positive trans representation. I think the documentary Disclosure on Netflix, that I think was, produced. It was made by Laverne Cox. Actually, she had a big role in that. I refer to it as, it was made by trans people for cis people, to show them the representations of trans people in our culture over the years, and it has not been kind. And we're actually finally starting to see some of that representation in a good way consistently. There's a show on NBC called Connecting that has a trans woman in it. There is, you want to talk about high profile, Star Trek Discovery season 3 has a trans man and a non-binary character that they added this season. And, one thing that was really interesting with it is the non-binary character. I knew who they were, and I knew who they, when they first appeared on the show, and because they talked about it in articles and things ahead of time, like the first non-binary character. And then when they came on the show, everybody was misgendering them over and over, several episodes in, including themselves. And it was actually just in the last episode that came out this week that they actually let someone else know, like, hey, my pronouns are they, them. I actually never felt like a she or a her. That is huge. Very, very huge. Like, I don't know if you can really appreciate how big that is if you are not trans. I hope so. I don't know. I'm trans, so I don't necessarily know how cis people think. Tell me in the comments if you have an opinion. Um, so now we have Elliot, and this is going to be really, really interesting because Elliot, spoilers if you haven't watched The Umbrella Academy, Elliot's character is female, and there have been 2 seasons. And so this character, uh, it's, I guess it's, the show's, I guess, 2 years old at this point, 2 or 3. I don't know how they space those out. But, Elliot Page has been out as, was out as a lesbian for several years, before the show came out. But the show is also based on a comic. So there's some measure of, I think, needing to be true to that. So in season 1, Elliot's character's love interest was a man, so it was ostensibly a straight relationship. And then in season 2, and I believe that he did have some input on this, um, his character's love interest was a woman. And so, that was ostensibly a lesbian relationship. Well, Elliot himself is trans, and season 3 is coming out, I think, next year, early next year, which I guess is pretty soon. So I'm really interested to see what's going to happen. Are they going to keep the character as a woman? Are they going to transition that character? Um, It'll be interesting to see. I can say for me personally, I would love to see the character transition. I think in the same way that Elliot, as the wonderful amazing human being that he is, transitioning in the public eye as a public figure, as awesome as that is for representation, to then also have a character on a very popular television show transition after, 2 seasons as one gender, and then, in or after season 3 actually transitioning, that would be huge. And I don't know, it's a superhero show, so who knows if they'll do it. If they do transition him, will they do it through traditional means? Will they take some sort of sci-fi twist on it? We don't know. Um, but I'm really interested to find out. I liked the show already. I was going to watch the show anyway, and I'll definitely be keeping my eye on it now. First 2 seasons were really fantastic, just for the record. So, I think that'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what other roles he picks up. Um, I fully expect him to probably not take any more roles that are written for female characters. He has, played the role of a woman for his whole life. And I have to imagine, like, while he has certainly gotten good at it, I doubt he wants to keep doing that. I don't blame him. I really once I realized I was trans, I got real tired of playing the role of a guy and really was like, I was ready to come out sooner than I did. Even though technically, like, the rest of me really wasn't ready, socially and physically. I probably really wasn't. I was ready. I was tired of playing that role. I was tired of living that dual life. So, so I'll be interested to see what happens. Certainly as more roles develop for characters that are, trans mask, um, he'll obviously be a contender for those as we see them develop. Um, but I think it's also interesting to see, will he be taking on um, roles that are where it doesn't matter if the character is cis or trans, like it's just a person. Because that's isn't that kind of what it all really comes down to anyway? Because, like, yes, I am trans, but I'm also a woman, and the trans part kind of doesn't matter to anybody except for me and my doctor and, the people I'm intimate with. Beyond that, it's really nobody's business, and it doesn't really have that much bearing on anybody else's life. So I hope that we'll see that. I I do think it's problematic to have cisgender actors playing characters that are trans, where them being trans is an important focus of the story. No disrespect to those actors, but there are more and more visible. Um, I don't want to say that. More and more people who are trans, who are actors, who could be taking these roles, and so I hope we'll continue to see that trend shifting towards, if you are a marginalized group, the characters that belong to that, characters that belong to marginalized groups will be played by people from those marginalized groups. But then, likewise, as I said, if it's not relevant to the character or the story, then who cares if it's somebody who's cis or if it's trans playing them? It just doesn't, and it shouldn't. I've played, not D&D specifically, but RPG characters, and I really like to write elaborate backstories, and it did come up one time, like, is your character trans or not? And my answer was, it doesn't matter. She's a woman. Is she trans? Is she cis? Doesn't matter. Truth be told, I don't know. And I didn't care because it wasn't relevant to the story or the character that I was trying to portray. And that's all it is. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Elliot. I am excited to follow his career from here on. Like, is that Some people will probably criticize that as like, oh, you only care because he's trans. And you know what? That's not the only reason. Like, he is a good actor. I have enjoyed things that I've seen him in. And so I will continue to enjoy his career moving forward because I like him as an actor. But I will be paying extra attention because he is trans, because that representation does, it affects me in a very personal, like emotional and mental, spiritual way. But it also, that representation helps to make the world a little bit better for me and for people like me. So, hell yeah, I have a vested interest in this, and I hope he continues to kick ass and take names and be the awesome actor that he is and the awesome person that he is. So, yeah, good luck, Elliot. You have the full support and the backing of, I think, a hell of a lot of people. Certainly a hell of a lot of trans people, even if we are a minority, but a lot of allies as well. And we're rooting for you. Certainly there's more of us than the people who aren't. And that's what I want to focus on, the positive. So kick ass and take names, Elliot. If you ever see this, I don't think you will, but if you ever see this, I am proud of you, and I'm glad you're part of the family, and I wish you nothing but the very best. As for the rest of you suckers, I wish you nothing but the best as well. So, as always, until next time, love and hugs.